Welcome to the third annual Golden Goose Award ceremony, the Academy Awards for geeks. I'm Miles O'Brien, and on behalf of the founding organizations of the Golden Goose Award, I thank you for all being here this evening. Before we get started, I want to note the presence of a special guest in the crowd here this evening, a previous Golden Goose Award winner, Rodney White. Rodney White, where are you? Stand up, take a bow. Excellent. The Golden Goose Award honors federally funded researchers whose work may have seemed odd or obscure, seemingly a waste of taxpayer dollars, fodder for late-night comedians and unenlightened lawmakers. It is a direct counterpoint to the infamous Golden Fleece Award that the late Senator from Wisconsin, William Proxmire, bestowed every month from 1975 through 1988. He said he created the award to highlight wasteful, ridiculous, or ironic use of the taxpayers' money. What it really did was highlight Proxmire's ignorance. Shrimp on treadmills, drunken fruit flies, and massaged rat pups may elicit snickers, but guess what? If you just take a few minutes to learn about the science and the researchers behind these catchy headlines, you realize more often than not they turn out to have a significant beneficial impact on society, such as on our health, or on the economy, or our national security. We have several members of Congress here this afternoon, and it is a busy day in Congress. There is a vote looming. We would hope it would be a vote to increase funding for NIH, but I don't think it is the case. When you're over there, members, just stand in the well and say, it's time we did that. We'd appreciate it. Sometimes in science, as in other fields, there can be serious disagreement over who gets the credit for an idea. We know how scientists can be. Of course, we all know Al Gore invented the internet, right? Seldom can we be so certain about that, right? Similarly, there is no mistaking who gets the credit for thinking up the Golden Goose Award, and that's Congressman Jim Cooper of Tennessee. Cooper thought, unlike Proxmire, Cooper thought we should be honoring these scientists, not ridiculing them, for gosh sakes. And he proposed the Golden Goose Award to do just that. It took a little bit of time, but eventually he convinced the organizations that are represented here today to run with this idea. So please welcome Congressman Jim Cooper.
Go ahead and say it. I look like a nerd. I am one, and I'm proud of it, and we're here to celebrate science. And it needs celebration on Capitol Hill because not only all lawmakers, but all taxpayers need to appreciate the sometimes miraculous discoveries that you people have come up with. First, a correction. This is the capital of political correctness, and it probably should be called the Golden Goose and Golden Gander Award. This is a gender-neutral activity. But the real point is this. Stories have real power. You tell me a fact and I'll learn. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. Tell me a story and I will carry it in my heart forever. Now, sometimes our scientist friends are not the best storytellers. There are some exceptions to this. My friend Rush Holt, who sadly will be departing as a member of Congress, I think he spoke a bit at lunch, and Rush, we want you up here to speak again because he's one of our celebrated colleagues, one of the few who understands actually what he's voting on when it's a scientific matter. But he does have the honor of representing Princeton University in Congress. Not all of us have that. But I have the pleasure of representing Vanderbilt University in Congress, so the Princeton of the South, right? Yeah. But, just a few decades ago, the word serendipity was really not even in the dictionary. And today, we're here to celebrate it. So thank you, and I look forward to the awards.
All right, let's go to the other side of the Capitol. Let's introduce Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. In his first term as a U.S. Senator, Chris Coons has worked hard and earned a reputation as a principled, pragmatic legislator, eager to find bipartisan solutions to the issues confronting Delaware and the nation. He has emerged as a strong voice for job creation, responsible deficit reduction, and the innovation economy, including sustained federal investment in scientific research. Let's reelect that man. Like his predecessor, who lives at the Naval Observatory now, he spends his days here and his nights in Delaware and the rest of his time on the Acela. So normally, we would need to get him out of here to make a train, but today it's all about the vote. So without further ado, please welcome Senator Chris Coons.
Thank you, Miles, for that gracious and timely introduction. Thank you to Congressman Jim Cooper for your remarkable service, for your vision in helping to create this Golden Goose Award, and to everybody here who's a part of the community that understands and supports the life-saving, the innovative value of federally funded basic research. To Rush Holt, we will miss you greatly. Your passion for improving Congress's ability to understand and engage with the world of science and research is one I hope to, in some small way, carry forward in my side of our Congress. And to Randy Hultgren, thank you as well for being here and for your advocacy for the national labs. I love the Golden Goose Awards because, as you heard, it takes a story that I think got too much traction over too much time due to the work of a former member who called them the Golden Fleece, and instead takes this idea that you really can't know exactly where fundamental science will go, and that it is entirely possible for serendipity to produce unexpected results. So whether it's the next penicillin or the next Teflon, being from Delaware, my particular favorite, whether it's the next iPhone or the next Google Maps, it is nearly impossible to know when you fund something that is fundamental, just how many good things will come from it. So I think this is a wonderful way to highlight the value of federally funded research, whether it's about massaging baby rats or game and auction theory. So, frankly, at a time when there's too little that is bipartisan and too little that is dedicated to understanding and science, this is a terrific award, and I'm grateful to its inventors and creators, to its sustainers and supporters, and to those of you who have earned them. Good luck this evening. Forgive me, we do have a vote currently underway in the Senate. Thank you.
All right, so now let's go to Congressman Randy Hultgren of Illinois. Congressman Hultgren has established himself as a leader in the House of Representatives on behalf of science and research. He's a member of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, one of my personal favorites, and he co-founded the House Science and National Labs Caucus. He also co-chairs the House STEM Education Caucus. Please welcome Randy Hultgren.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It is really good to be here. I love this night. I love these stories. And I am a conservative Republican who is passionate supporter of government-funded basic scientific research. It is absolutely something. It is absolutely what we should be doing. We do a lot of things that we maybe shouldn't be doing, but this is something we should be doing. And I love, as we do research, you never really know what is going to come of it. But I can guarantee you, if we don't do it, we won't be an innovative nation. We won't be a nation of discovery. If we do commit ourselves, continue to commit ourselves, and push ourselves to fund further, again, basic scientific research, federal funding for it, the sky's the limit as far as discovery and of new techniques, new discovery, new innovation, making lives better. I am so glad I was able, with Jim Cooper in Chicago a few months ago, to be able to recognize Dr. Larry Smarr was going to be one of the recipients of the Golden Goose Award. Again, just a wonderful story there, but so many stories. And I absolutely agree with what my colleague Jim Cooper said, that we need stories. We need to tell the successes. We hear so much bad news as members of Congress, and so many things that can be twisted as far as things that look bad on us. But to tell the story of success and continued success and continued opportunity goes so far of us pushing for that additional funding. And I absolutely agree too with Miles, with your statement of let's increase funding for NIH, let's increase funding for other areas where we can make lives better for our kids, for our grandkids, for the world because of incredible research going on right here in America. So congratulations to all the recipients. Keep up the great work. Thank you all for being here. To my good friend Jim, thank you for starting this important award. Rush, we're going to miss you a lot. I know you're going to still have a significant impact on our nation and our world, and we thank you so much for the great impact you've had on Congress. And so thank you for all that you've done and will continue to do. For all of you, thank you for being here. I hope we all will have a great night. Thanks.
Last but not least, one of my favorite political bumper stickers of all time reads, "My congressman is a rocket scientist." Not many congressional districts can ever make that claim, but Rush Holt can. He is a physicist and a former assistant director of the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory. He's truly a champion of science in and out of the halls of Congress. Holt serves as the co-chair of the House Research and Development Caucus and of the Congressional Biomedical Research Caucus. This community is going to miss him dearly, as everybody has voiced here previously, when he retires at the end of this congressional session, but we hope he remains a voice for the cause that we hold dear. Please welcome Rush Holt.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks to the organizers, the judges, especially the recipients of the Golden Goose Awards for your hard work and persistence, sometimes in the face of adversity and skepticism. And especially thanks to Jim Cooper for a clever idea to help you and all of us tell the stories. Because this is, not about these particular research projects. It is about getting all Americans able to think like scientists and appreciate what it means to think like a scientist, where you can base your findings on evidence and present them in a way that they can be verified. That is invaluable for guarding against self-deception, which is probably the most common form of deception in life, and particularly valuable in government, but also in business and many other things. So what Jim Cooper has done is give us a good hook for spreading the word about what it is we're trying to do here. We're not trying to just fund NIH and NSF. This is not a jobs program for people in lab coats. This is about helping people think better. And part of that is to learn that you get past the sometimes silly or playful names or the incongruous associations. And by the way, Jim and I spent some time discussing whether it really should be called the Golden Goose Awards, because it's the egg that is golden. But we're talking about unexpected results. So, so maybe a 24-carat goose it would be unexpected so it's great to be here with Randy Hultgren and Senator Coons, but mostly with all of you, because I know that you're going to not just smile in a self-satisfied way at the stupidity of people who ridicule good science. You're going to leave this room and spread the word of why we care about this. Thanks.
All right, thank you all. Off to your votes. The Golden Goose Award was created by several higher education, scientific, business, and policy organizations. These groups believe deeply in the promise of scientific research and in the diversity of scientific disciplines and research sectors that are the critical underpinnings for our nation's innovation system. Now, they have a shared interest in reminding policymakers and the public of the nature of discovery, that even the oddest or most unexpected research can lead to breakthroughs that affect our families, our country, and indeed our planet. The founding organizations of the Golden Goose Award are the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the Association of American Universities, the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities, the Breakthrough Institute, the Progressive Policy Institute, PPI, the Richard Lounsbury Foundation, the Science Coalition, the Task Force on American Innovation, United for Medical Research. Now, on behalf of these organizations, I want to thank the other sponsors whose support has made the 2014 Golden Goose Awards possible. Our partner organizations are the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation and SAGE Publications, and our contributor organizations are the American Astronomical Society, the American Mathematical Society, APS Physics, the Association of Psychological Science, the Association of American Medical Colleges, Battelle, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and finally, our supporter organizations are the American Society of Microbiology, the Biophysical Society, the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology, IEEE USA, Texas Instruments. If there is a science organization left in this town that isn't a part of this, I don't know what it would be. So give them all a round of applause. We appreciate their support. Now, the nominations for the Golden Goose Award can come from anyone. That means all of you. They are evaluated by a distinguished panel of scientists who form the Golden Goose Award Selection Committee. We're pleased to have two members of that committee with us today. I'd like them to stand and be recognized. Wendy Baldwin, a former Deputy Director for Extramural Research at the National Institutes of Health. She's over there. And Daniel Newland, who is Director of Government Relations for the American Economic Association and a former Director of the National Science Foundation's Economics Program. Thank you for your work. The first recipient of the Golden Goose Award is Larry Smarr. Dr. Smarr is a physicist whose story is a perfect example, as you saw, of how the pursuit of an answer to a question in the realm of basic fundamental science can lead you on a path to a serendipitous eureka moment. Smarr's work on relativity and black hole collisions led to the supercomputing revolution, development tools needed to unleash that power. Who knew all of this would lead to Twitter, Facebook, and funny cat videos, for gosh sakes, you know? So really, he can claim the internet as his invention. So Dr. Smarr, congratulations. Our next recipients are Robert Wilson, Paul Milgram, and Preston McAfee. A cursory glance at the auctions you just heard about, described in the video, might on the face of it have earned Golden Fleece status in its heyday, but the results have actually delivered just the opposite, a huge saving for the taxpayer. The results from their work are truly golden eggs. Drs. Wilson, Milgram, and McAfee, please come forward to accept your awards. They're going to have a great time with the TSA tonight, aren't they? It's going to be a lot of fun. I think they're going to ship them, don't worry. Our final awardees are Saul Schamberg, Tiffany Martini-Field, Cynthia Kuhn, and Gary Evanick. If Bill Proxmire and his acolytes were still trolling for research grants to vilify, a study that gives baby rats some spa time would have been a sure contender, right? But it turns out this work has taught us a lot about how human beings should interact with their own progeny, and that's a good thing, right? This is precisely the kind of research that should be heralded, not scorned. And that is why it is a Golden Goose Award winner for 2014. Saul Schamberg passed away in 2009. His granddaughter, Katie Eimers, is accepting the award on his behalf. Please, all of you, come forward. All right, congratulations to all the winners. And we're going to do a quick little interview with, oh yeah, one more. Wait a minute, we got to get the picture. Yeah. Get everybody up here. You guys got to hurry so you can get your awards. want to get a group shot? One group shot? Everybody stand up. All right. Okay, everybody get seated. Can you still hear me? Still hear me out there? Okay, great. Now, Dr. Smar, Dr. Smar, something struck me. How now? Better? I want to begin with you. Something struck me about what you said at lunch. If you were to try to do what you did in the mid-'80s today, would it happen?
Well, there are still some really great projects that the federal agencies are able to fund, but I think there is a general sense of conservatism, not just on the federal agencies, but in the reviewers, because when the money gets so tight that maybe 1 in 10 proposals is being awarded, sometimes even less, they got to be very sure that it's going to work, and so that's a conservative approach, as opposed to, well, nobody's ever done this before. How can we know whether it's going to work? Well, that's what we call high risk, and often it's high reward.
So do high-risk proposals, is it presumed that they will not be accepted? I mean, so basically there's very little incentive to take a big gamble, is there?
Well, there is. I keep sending them in, but
There's a stack somewhere in an Indiana Jones warehouse in Washington, right?
well, one of the things I wanted to say is because a lot of this is about the scientists, but what makes that difference are also the program officers that are in the agencies, like Richard Isaacson, who's here tonight, was the program officer at the National Science Foundation in General Relativity that gave me my first grant, and then later worked behind the scenes with other folks to help lead the way to the NSF doing the National Supercomputer Centers. And so the best thing is when you have this partnership between people in the agencies and people out in the field doing the work. But that gets more and more difficult as things get tighter and tighter, and that's where we are now.
How important, though, is it for the federal government to be in this space, and can't foundations or other benefactors support this kind of thing?
Well, I think people don't understand the scale that the federal government is engaged in. In San Diego, we have all kinds of, Qualcomm and all kinds of biotech and everything else, but when you actually look at the dollars, the venture capital money that starts the innovation in San Diego is the federal government by a very large factor compared to any private investment or foundation investment.
Yeah, I think it's probably better to instead of calling it spending, to call it an investment. All right, let's move over to Drs. Wilson, Milgram, and McAfee. Sounds like a law firm somewhere. Drs. Wilson and Milgram, first of all, game theory. Did that get you to auctions, or did auctions get you to game theory? How did that go? This is a goose and egg question for you.
Oh, well, game theory studies multi-person interactions, and that's competitive bidding is just like an example. It's one of the problems to be studied.
Well, I guess for me, it's the question that drove the methods. I think game theory isn't the only method I've used to study the problem, the auction design problem, but it was the auction problem that came first, and the strategic interactions that are engaged that are involved in auctions drives an important part of the analysis.
So you'd be the great example when your kids don't want to study math, that there is a real application for mathematics in the real world. But how could you be so certain it was going to work in the real world?
So I actually wasn't. That was, I remember.
There's that serendipity again, right?
Oh yeah, I remember in 1993 when I got called by some companies about applying the basic research.
93.
Yeah, 93. Yeah, right. I thought, well, what do I know about all the details of running a real multi-billion-dollar auction? But when I saw the proposals that were there, I thought, well, I do have something to contribute, and so I made the efforts that I made, and it worked out pretty well.
But you guys, you're not done. You're still applying this to other auctions. The FCC is involved. They don't use eBay, and so
we're getting ready to run what unfortunately in some respects will be the most complicated auction in history. We have the
The
FCC
most complicated auction in history.
Oh, by a wide margin, yes.
Completely
Right.
guaranteed. All right, and what would that be?
It's going to be simple for the bidders. The idea is to create something that's easy to work with, even though it solves a really complicated resource allocation problem. The problem is taking spectrum that is currently used for broadcast television and buying some of the rights from broadcasters and moving other broadcasters into other parts of the spectrum to clear the clear radio spectrum and then sell that for mobile broadband. And the Congressional Budget Office has estimates that the purchase cost will be about $15 billion and the sale about $40 billion. These are very rough numbers, but there's just tremendous amounts of money involved. And the problems of moving the TV stations around are, even in theory, these are hard problems. They're what computer scientists call NP-hard problems, which means there don't exist any algorithms that are guaranteed to actually be able to solve these problems in reasonable time. And we have to build an auction on that. And so it's all amazingly complicated, but we're creating something that will create a lot of value, and that's what we're doing.
Interesting. Dr. McAfee, why don't you tell us a little bit about the corporate behaviors and how you try to anticipate how that all works. I don't know how that feeds into what you're doing right now.
So actually it does, and the chance to work on the PCS auctions was one of the highlights of my career, and I managed to replicate it by working in companies solving much the same problems. And while Paul's auction is really complicated, it is also a one-shot auction. We run auctions that, we auction 10 billion different things every day. Those are complicated in a different way. And that's one of the things that I've worked on is making the search auctions and the advertising auctions, that is these annoying ads that you face, more efficient, so that at least the ad that you see is more relevant for you.
I don't know, it freaks me out. It really does. Doesn't it you just a little bit, teeny bit? How do they know? I hate that.
It's actually, they don't know. This is an interesting aspect of this, is that the advertiser doesn't know the ad has been shown to you unless you click on it. So that is, they've sent a group of ads to your computer. The cookie that's on your computer says, this is the right one for that person. And often the advertiser has no way to know.
So the computer is ratting you out.
Yeah,
To have a conversation with that computer. So, all right, to all three of you gentlemen, how much time do you spend on your smartphones all day? All day? It's all day. It's all day. I had a feeling.
No, they got PCs too.
Yeah. All right, let's move along. Doctors Kuhn and it's Evanek. Evanek, thank you. I apologize. All right, so rat pups, rat infants, and rat massages. When you were thinking about this, did you sort of think about Bill Proxmire and how this would play? Or not?
I didn't at all. I just
Didn't occur to you?
Want to solve the problem.
Exactly. It was the logical next step. It was the scientific process, and it was.
We were young and naive.
Yeah.
What was the most surprising moment along the way for you?
To me, it was that it worked the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, we had thought about it, we had talked about it. I tried it one day, and it worked.
But you walk me through that moment where you said, I wonder if a little massage, kneaded out a little bit and would be good. Did that just come to you in an instant?
No, I think it was the process. There had been experiments before that narrowed it down.
We were being systematic about it. We sat there and thought, okay, what does she do for them? She gives them warmth, she gives them food, she gives them, she licks them, and we sort of went through in a pretty systematic way. We came to the licking at the very, very end. After we'd gotten rid of everything else and none of it worked, then we came up with that. But it was really just a result of kind of being good scientists.
Yeah. So,
and yelling at each other like, no, it can't be that.
was it easy to make a correlation to humans and raising human beings?
To me, that was the genius of it, is Saul and Tiffany meeting up at study section and making that leap, which I would have never been bold enough to do, ever. That was all Tiffany.
Walk us through that, Tiffany. How did that happen? How did you make that leap?
Well, it was funny because he described you as having a eureka experience with the paintbrush and brushing the rat pups. And we had been, the preemies we had been massaging for a long time, but we weren't applying the right kind of pressure. And so we learned from the rat pup study that we needed to apply more pressure. And as soon as we did that, the babies started gaining weight and going home earlier. And then we went on to study growth hormone and various things that were happening under the skin.
I guess we really have a relatively newfound appreciation for how important what we as parents do for our kids at the very early stage is to their later development, right?
Right, very definitely. And with the preemies, we found that it's not only good for their growth and development, but for the parent-infant interactions. And say nothing of, it saves $4.8 billion if you do that to every preemie.
That's not bad.
Not bad.
That's
Not bad. We'll give the money back to NIH,
right? Don't do it.
It's a small tax.
It's a lot of rat food for sure. I got to tell you that.
Auction.
Well, so what's working for you and what isn't these days? Do you have the same problem that Dr. Smar has with, well, let me ask you this. What percentage of your time do you spend seeking money, hat in hand?
Yes, at least 60% of the time.
60% of the time.
60%.
Is that all, you guys all in the 60%
Absolutely.
realm? Is that about right? Yeah? So all the other 40% is all science? No, you've got other things to do
Other
too,
things
right?
to do too.
Right. So there's precious little time for science, isn't there?
That's true, and it's one of the big, you brought up why do we need money from the government. The government is not only paying for our science, but they're 58 cents on top of every dollar they give us to do research, they're using to support teaching and all the other functions that happen in universities. It's the indirect costs that are really very, very critical.
So, I mean, and anybody can jump in on this, and the role of federal funding. The federal government is uniquely situated to fund what you do. Are there alternatives?
None.
I mean,
this would have not happened without the NIH. Who would have invested in that idea? There was no profit to be made. It was an idea that we thought might eventually improve health very indirectly. It would not have happened without the NIH. I'm a big believer that government should do certain things, and this is one of the things that I think it should do. It should do things people can't do for themselves.
I think you can make the argument that that is precisely the reason you would want the federal government, because there is no business case for what you're doing. But the government within that realm has to allow scientists to be scientists, and that can get kind of ugly, right? No, I mean that can be good. That's very important, right?
So we have a slightly different situation. We have a combination of basic research and very applied research that we're doing. The very applied stuff, we are getting funding from people who are benefiting directly from the applications. But the basic research in game theory and the basic research in economics that underlies it, that stuff is we rely on federal funding for. There's no private source for that. So we have a mix of sources.
And I think this point is so important. Look, when we got money for the supercomputers, not only were they not in universities, they weren't in most American industries. And yet, within the first 5 years, 100 times as many academics started using these supercomputers as had done it before there was a program. And then all these companies, all the Fortune 1 or 2s in their categories, started coming and saying, well, look, this looks like we better get on this. By 1988, only 3 years after, Lilly became the first pharmaceutical to buy their own supercomputer. Within another year, every pharmaceutical had bought a supercomputer. That sped up drug design. None of that was in academia. That was coming directly back to empower the economy and to make people healthier and to solve problems in medicine. And that was across the thing. Caterpillar, Allstate, JP Morgan, all of them came to just our center, the same for many of the other centers. So this amplification, so the people basically, it's their money, they invest in the academics. This is what land-grant universities were founded for. The idea that, okay, we'll make a deal. The society will give some money to the scientists if these ideas come back into the means of production, which in those days were agriculture and manufacturing. Now it's the whole economy.
Well, do you think somehow that somebody else had something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It's worth
Yeah.
emphasizing that the United States has the finest universities in the world precisely because of having the finest professors, precisely because they are supported, their research is supported. If that moves overseas, it will be a really bad outcome for the United States.
Do you fear that is happening right now? I mean, I read a lot about the Chinese
Absolutely.
doing everything they
Absolutely.
can to try to become dominant in this area.
Look at pharmaceutical research. Much of it has moved out of the United States.
That argument is so, it isn't rocket science, is it? It's a pretty obvious argument. The government steps in, nurtures something along, and suddenly the private sector comes along when it's ripe and ready. That's a reasonable argument. That puts it in the terms of an investment, not a spend item. Why does that get lost in the debate in this town? Now I've asked the scientists a really hard question.
Well, I'll tell you
Run some game theory on that one, will you?
Well, I think we are part of the fault because we don't often talk to people who aren't scientists. And there's a very big gulf between, the rocket scientists, I'm the rocket scientist, I pet baby rats, but we talk in, we talk in language that Congress people can't hear. And we just assume that they're going to believe in science and in facts, when in actuality they have a different cognitive system altogether. And I think we need to learn how to, I don't mean that in an assaulting way at all. And I think I have a dear colleague who always says, I believe this, I believe that. I said, no, Bill, you need to think it. But he talks to a lot of people and he's very effective because we need to talk to people where they are, not where we think they should be.
Well,
I feel really strongly about that.
Yeah, I mean, give them a round of applause for that. That is not something that every scientist is equipped and ready to do.
Yeah, we're not good at this.
Yeah, no, and we shouldn't say, I would suggest to you that if a scientist is capable of doing it, and there's some that should just stay in their labs. That's a bit, right? I mean, we love them, just stay there and keep working. It's great.
That's true.
But those that can, and I think probably this crowd represents some that can, I almost feel they have an obligation to do this. Would you all concur with that?
Yes.
I spent my afternoon on Capitol Hill talking to North Carolina Congress people.
So what's the strategy then? How do you get out there? Because I am living proof that there aren't many science correspondents left in the television world. How do you communicate to the public these days? What's the advice that you share among scientists? What are your ideas?
Well, I think the press is the most effective translator and transmitter of information to the whole world.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
He paid her to say
We seldom get compliments like that,
Yes.
but it's really
So
nice to
I
be
think
with you here.
talking to the press is really important.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we all try to do. But I'd like to make another point about
Yeah.
the federal government, and that is that we have a lot of corporate sponsorship of our research. For example, my institute was started by Johnson & Johnson, but it only was after the federal government funded the research. So it's like the federal government sets a model for what research should be funded, and then the corporate sector and the private sector follows through with additional funding.
Okay, so let's project out a little bit in the future here. One of the concerns that I hear frequently when I talk to scientists is it's very difficult to attract good people, good young people, because they don't see a bright future. You had an undergraduate by the name of Andreessen who went on to a little bit of fame there. Dr. Smar gave us Netscape. Are we missing out on future Andreessens?
I think so. One of the things I really worry about, and I see this in my own two kids who are now a little over 30, the average age for the first R01 at NIH, the first individual research grant, is about 43 years old. And so when you're getting your PhD in your 20s, and you're thinking, really? I've got to stay around for another 20 years before I get my first federal grant from the NIH? What's that about? And there's all these other things that we can do. So as a country, the question is, where are our young people going? Are they heading into science? Or are they going to say, no, there's all this other stuff. I'm going to write an app. Well, apps are okay. I mean, crazy cat videos and stuff like that, I suppose, is important. But this is really...
No, it's not.
This is, I mean, it really is serious. To think that our society is going to continue to be science-based and to have the incredible economic productivity it has when we're having a cultural war that's questioning science itself, in which the political divide is being against science, that's an incredibly dangerous thing for a country to do. And we're seeing that around the world. It isn't just here.
But it didn't used to be this way in this country. We used to embrace
it
them.
isn't guaranteed that we're going to have a rosy outcome as a country. If you don't invest in new ideas, if you don't keep discovery and innovation alive, you don't have a very bright future.
Anybody else?
I wanted to add, I have had some disappointments that way from some of my very best undergraduate students at Stanford who were tremendous, brilliant people that ended up not going to graduate school because the opportunities in the private sector. One of them does high-speed trading in Chicago. You know, if you manage to get your message to the stock exchange a millisecond or a microsecond ahead of the other guys, you get to make the trade when they did, and you make some money from that. You know, the really smart people are figuring out that they can make a lot more money that way when the careers in science are just not as attractive. And I've lost some really, really good students to much less valuable pursuits, socially valuable pursuits, just because of the nature of the funding.
Do you have the sense that this generation is more money motivated, less altruistic perhaps, or is it just that there's such a bleak landscape in the world of science? It's not a good alternative, in other words.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm comparing generations. That would be too quick to do. But there's certainly the difference in opportunities is enormous right now, and the students are responding to that.
Any other thoughts on the future generations here?
I thought you said, how do we do this? And one reason is to get into the schools. I spent a lot of time in schools, talking to kids, talking to parents. And one maybe upside of the current oversupply of PhDs is that they're having to find other employments, and they are taking a knowledge of science all over the economy and all over the country. And that may bear fruit in that you have people who can use facts and objective reality to guide their behavior. I'd be delighted to have my granddaughter's preschool teacher be somebody who understood science. And so I think we're going to see, I have two kids who are also in their 30s, neither of whom are academic scientists, but they can use science in their thinking, and they're making real contributions to whatever they do with that basis. So I have a crumb of optimism in the midst of all this doom and gloom for what this next generation can do if they have that information.
Any more words of optimism here, or is that
Well, I
it?
can echo that. Especially computer science PhDs are often choosing industry where they do some research and some more applied things, and have brought the science tools with them to tech companies, and have made a material difference, I think, to the country as a result.
All right, so we have been doing a lot of doom and gloom here, haven't we? That's no fun. So since I have you all here, I want you to kind of pitch me on a story that we're not telling. Tell me something good that's happening in science that we should be listening for, reading for, looking out for. Frankly, I'm looking for some ideas, so just, if there's any reporters out there, don't pay any attention now.
I'm in a department that's called Pharmacology and Cancer Biology, and I'm a neuropharmacologist. I don't know anything about cancer, but they really are figuring out how to cure cancer. You know, that's
pretty cool.
That's like being a rocket scientist. I'm not going to cure cancer or anything, but they are curing cancer, actually. And they're using really sophisticated scientific tools, and comparing where we are today with where we were 30 years ago, it's staggering. And there are a lot of people alive because of that. So I think that's a big story.
Cure for cancer, that's a headline. Anything else? What else do we have?
We have the fields of economics and computer science and game theory have actually started to merge and produce new technologies that are market technologies. How do we build a market that has, and that's what we're winning this award for, was the early forerunners of that. But these, and what Paul described earlier, the spectrum auctions, they really can change the world and make the world a much better place for humanity. Putting children in schools that are appropriate, that work better for them. These are major accomplishments.
Anybody else?
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
you know, the thing, Miles, that makes it so ironic is this is about the most amazing period of discovery in science that probably has ever happened. I mean, just take one thing. The fact is that each of you is made of only 10% human cells. 90% of you are microbes from hundreds of different species.
Really?
Well, and I was an astrophysicist. I was, you know, working with galaxies that had 100 billion stars in it. I thought that was pretty complicated, you know. There's 100 trillion microbes in each one of you, 1,000 microbes for every star when you see a picture like of the Milky Way or, I mean, the Andromeda galaxy. And And they're all interacting in ways that are totally important for our health, for whether they metabolize drugs, basically you wouldn't work without these. And the only reason we can figure them out now is the exponential decrease, say 100,000 times less money to sequence genes than it did when the Human Genome Program went through. And I use 25 CPU years to compute just what's inside of me compared with other people, so that for the first time, we're really mapping out what humans actually are. None of this is in today's medicine. All of this is coming to completely change the way we think about ourselves and health and disease and what we eat, everything. It's at the core. And how could we not have known about this? And yet now, in just the last 5 or 6 years, it's coming to light. It's one of the most exciting times I've ever had as a scientist in my entire career.
And the human genome says we're all going to live till 120 at least, all of us. So I said,
And
well,
we'll still
what-
look marvelous, right?
Well, I said, what's going to kill us? And they said, boredom or poverty.
I think we'll leave it on that note. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Congratulations to all of you.